My name is Bruce Geiger, and my firm is Bruce W. Geiger and Associates. And what I do is I'm the legislative representative for the association. Well, the association would like to pass a bill, obviously, the right to repair bill, or the fair repair bill, as we call it, in New York State. And in order to get something done in this complicated and sophisticated state of New York, you usually have to have someone who has a knowledge of the system and the folks that are in charge of making the decisions. So I worked for a senator from Long Island for 20 years, was chief of staff, and after that period of time working for the legislature, I went out and started my own government affairs business. And consequently, because I work inside and I've been working outside for 17 years, I have a very good working knowledge of the process. And that is going to help tremendously the prospects for passage of this legislation in New York State.
So you would know best what the procedures are for getting the bill passed and who are the best people to speak to and how to structure it so that it has the best chance of moving its way through.
Know best?
No better than us.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Are you
yes.
good at playing chess?
I did. Growing up as a kid.
Do you know more about the law than people that solder all day?
Well, here's the point. We're kind of like a necessary evil, right? Nobody really likes lobbyists, and I refrain from using.
I can tell.
Yeah. Refrain from using that term, but that's what we are. We're the lobbyists, right? And one of the things that we do is the things that you can't do because you're actually doing your jobs every day, and you don't have time to come up here and waste time because a lot of times you wouldn't know necessarily who the right people are to speak to. You'd be spending a lot of time and resources maybe in the wrong place. I help the association put together a strategy, identify the players that are important in making decisions on their legislation, and then we sit down and we figure out the game plan on how we're going to get this legislation passed.
Do you think there's a better chance of this getting passed now than in 2015?
Oh, I absolutely do.
The enthusiasm was very different from in 2015. It wasn't like we were just talking to a bunch of people that took 10 minutes out of their lunch break. Those were people that were all there just solely for the purpose of discussing this.
Well, something like this is always an educational process, right? So there's 213 legislators. That's a lot of legislators, 150 assemblymen and 63 senators. So somebody has to raise the level of their attention to this issue. They come from all different parts of the state. In different parts of the state, some are rural parts, some are suburban. And New York City, most of the legislators in the assembly come from New York City because the population down there is such that that's where their representatives are generated from. So consequently, there's this education process. And since 2015, when we first put the legislation in, we've been going through the process of identifying who the players are, what committees the bill's going to be in. We've worked with members of the legislature and the chair and the sponsors of the legislation to get the bill in a form that they feel comfortable with to advance through the legislative process, and that took a little while because we were taking language from the automotive MOU, the Massachusetts legislation, and trying to create a bill that was specific to New York State. So that was a little bit of a process.
Do you think a lot of what Apple's done over the past 3 years have added momentum to the bill, with the battery slowing down the phone, Error 53 and the home button's not working, the screen's not working if you update the operating system?
I think it's been a tremendous help. Apple has been...
They're our best advocates, it seems, because there are senators that are 3 times my age that have the exact same frustrations. It seems like their own geniuses are best at creating the frustration
every
that encourages this legislation.
With a 6+ when we were here in 2015.
Every senator with a 6+.
Every senator with a 6+ is now on board.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that is absolutely true because the issue has its own media following, right? All the tech reporters were reporting on that. And so people started reading those issues that we all knew about over the last couple of years, but were hard to bring to people's attention, all started to hit the mainstream media. We were getting articles in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times about what Apple was doing. And that was a tremendous benefit for us because now when we went to meet with members, they were like, oh yeah, sure, I read about that. Tell me a little more about that. And they were already oriented to the issue, and they were willing to listen more technically.
One thing that I didn't know until I was talking with Bruce just a little bit ago is, Bruce is a full-time lobbyist, and we're understaffed, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you could say that. But when I think when you're on the right side of an issue, it certainly helps, and it makes it more difficult for the opposition to make their case that they're actually out there protecting. The bottom line is they're protecting their monopoly over repair, and it always comes back to that. As the legislator said at the press conference this morning, they dwelled on it quite a bit, and that is when you buy a product, you own it, and you should be allowed to repair it. And there shouldn't be a concerted effort on the part of the manufacturers to prevent you from doing that. So that's the injustice that we're facing right now, and we're trying to correct it, and the way to do that is to change the law.
Thank you for taking the time today.
Don't break his hand. Be gentle.
An example. You probably heard about the legislation in Massachusetts when legislation was brought forward to say that if you bought a BMW or some other vehicle and tried to go to your local repair shop to fix it, they said, no, you got to come back to our BMW dealership to get it fixed. Of course, it was going to cost 2 or 3 times more. And I don't mean to bash BMW. I love BMW. Just an example. So they passed legislation in Massachusetts to make sure that local repair could be done by the auto industry. The same thing we see in New York and other states for digital equipment, cell phones, computers, whatever the case may be. Some larger digital and electronic systems. They were going out of business, left and right. Thousands and thousands of jobs in New York State were at risk. So we introduced legislation, and we were very happy to have the majority leader in the Assembly as the sponsor in the Assembly to get the digital right to repair legislation passed. We've not been able to do it yet, but we're going to do it this year with everyone's help.
Yes.
Bottom line is when you purchase an item, you have the reasonable expectation that you own the device and the right to repair it. That's what this is all about. And with that, I would like to introduce the Majority Leader of the State Assembly, Joe Morelli.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll just start by, first of all, thanking all my partners in government. Thank you, Senator Boyle, for your long-standing commitment to this issue. I grew up in a house where my dad was a pipe fitter and did electrical work, did carpentry, and we still marvel when we go back in the garage and find all the things that he repaired and rebuilt somehow. He was somebody who would never give up on anything until he somehow managed to fix it and got more useful life out of it than it could have ever been originally designed to give you. It taught me a lesson about, over the years, about the need to make sure that we retain and reuse the things that we have. I began a journey like this many, many years ago when I first came to Albany. There were questions about remanufacturing. We have a big center in Rochester at Rochester Institute of Technology that's devoted to remanufacturing, extending the life cycle of consumer products and other products, and worked very hard to make sure that the state of New York recognized the importance of that when it came to purchasing. So when Senator Boyle and I talked about this, and Bruce and others, this seemed a natural extension of the work that I've done in the past. I believe in this very, very much, that when a consumer, as Senator pointed out, when you purchase something, essentially, as long as you don't violate intellectual property, that's your piece of, whether it's a consumer good, an automobile, electronics, it really doesn't matter. When you purchase it, you own it. You have the right to repair it. You have the right to extend the life of it. And what's happened in the 21st century is the ability to embed technology which will stop it from being able to be used is such that it really takes away from consumers the choice of what they want to do with their products. You look at cell phones. I had a recent experience. One of my children had a cell phone. He's not really a child. I just describe him as a child. He should have known better. But he takes a phone, and I have a Verizon account, so his account my account is his. He gets, let me just put it this way, I pay for his phone. Okay, I'll just say it that way. And my mother's got a second line on my account. So he goes in, and one of the manufacturers gives him an upgrade on his phone, which, according to my son, means he's getting a free phone, which, according to his father, means I'm paying for a brand new phone, because an upgrade in that industry means you just pay for another device. I don't know what they're upgrading. Anyway, So as it turns out, the screen cracked on the phone. He brings it back to Verizon, and they say, "Oh, don't worry, we'll just get you another one." Well, they gave him another one, but they didn't tell him he was paying now for an entirely second device. No one bothered to say, "Hey, you might want to take this and just get the screen checked out." Yeah. So now I'm paying for two brand new phones. One has a cracked screen. One seems to be okay. But the idea that someone would sell you without saying, "Hey, you have a right to repair this. You should just go to the manufacturer or go to a third party that can do this and probably charge you 1/20th or less than what it costs to buy a brand new phone," which, frankly, I'm not sure he needed a brand new phone. It just brings to mind that consumer goods are really consumers own them. You ought to have the right, when you own products, as long as, again, it doesn't violate intellectual property, you have the right to do whatever you want with it. And manufacturers who stop you by using technology in ways it's not intended to stop you from being able to be the steward of your own equipment, the things you own, is wrong. So I'm very hopeful. I appreciate my friend and colleague Donald Lepardo and Felix Ortiz being here. We're going to get this done in the Assembly. We'll continue to push on it. And I want to thank everybody in the industry who works so hard at this to make sure that consumers get a fair return and value on the products that they own. So thanks so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Joe. And I know once we get this bill passed in the state legislature of New York, we're going to be looking for national legislation. So if anybody knows anybody running for Congress, please get their ear. And now I'd like to introduce Assemblyman Donald Lepardo.
Sure. Thank you very much. Sure. I'll be very brief because we really want to hear from the professionals who know this topic best. I think Joe Morelli and I had very similar dads. My very first, earliest memories of my father, this may date me, of course, was going up to the local hardware store with the TV tubes. Yeah. There were tubes in TVs at one time. And you got to repair your own television by bringing the tubes and putting them in a tester to find out which tubes needed to be replaced. And that instilled in me for a lifetime an interest in making sure that we have the opportunity to repair the things that we have. I will add to Mr. Morelli's remarks the environmental impact. It distresses me, and it distressed my father, who also worked in solid waste management, that we would throw things out and replace them with something new rather than just trying, for those who want to repair these items. So I'm very excited on behalf of my dad, Mr. Morelli's dad, and all the others who want to do this, the professionals who care so much. I'm very hopeful we can get this done this year so we can start repairing the things we want to fix on our own. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And now Assemblyman Felix Ortiz.
I don't have the same experience, but I will tell you this much. Let me just say that I would like to thank the Senator and the Assemblyman for introducing this piece of legislation. One of the reasons why I'm here is because I received almost about 120 emails from my district to support this piece of legislation. And it's two components of that. Number one, we have a lot of repair shop in Sunset Park. I represent Sunset Park and represent as well Red Hook and also a piece of Borough Park. It's a lot of repair shop there. And sometimes this repair shop, they come from the bottom up. They are mom and pop store. They hire like 3 or 5 people to work in their stores. And at the end of the day, and I give you a quick example, okay? Joe Morales spoke about the cell phone. I will talk about my BlackBerry. My BlackBerry broke. I still use BlackBerry. And I went to I will not mention the company, but I will say I went to the company that I'm with, and they said, you can get an upgrade. I said, what does that upgrade mean? Well, you have to pay a $30 extra, and we give you a new phone. But I said, the only thing I need is to change the glass. It's broke. They put a new glass, and we cannot do that anymore. So this is just an example of what happened to me going directly to the company. Now, I went directly to a local dealer in my district, and they said, we cannot do it because they're prohibiting us from doing so. So I think this piece of legislation, not only we're talking about electronic, but we're also talking about dealership. I represent about 2 dealerships in my district, and I will tell you this much, I have probably about 101 mechanics, mom and pop mechanic in my district. They can do the BMW if you bring a Joe, your BMW, they can do yours. They can do Mercedes-Benz and so on and so forth. The bottom line at the end of the day is that these mechanics sometimes tell these people, you have to go back to the dealership because they are not giving us the pieces to do it for you. We won't be able to check the mechanics. So I'm very proud to standing here, not just only to represent the 120 emails that I got from my district, but also to support all of you and to support the Assemblyman and the Senate to make sure this legislation become to be light and we can continue to protect consumer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felix. And now we'll hear from Gay Gordon Byrne. Gay is the Executive Director of the Repair Association. Gay?
Hi. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This is a great day for us. We've been getting a terrific group of people here to show what repair really is. If you have a chance to come out into the concourse and take a look, there's a whole group of us down there demonstrating all different kinds of repair, all different kinds of reuse. What happens to everything if it can't be repaired is that it winds up in the trash. And that's the real reason for the importance of this legislation, is that consumers no longer have the choice to fix their stuff. And I mean stuff in a very, very general sense, because now anything with a chip inside has become impossible to repair unless the manufacturer does something very unusual, which is let you. And it used to be that they all let you. But it's turned backwards in the past 20 years. And unfortunately, we need to ask for legislation to restore all of us the right to fix our stuff. And for 19 million or so New Yorkers, they're all going to wind up having a better life if this bill passes, because they'll be able to keep the stuff they like longer. They will probably keep it longer than the manufacturer wants. But that's their choice. It should be their choice. They bought it. They own it. And unless they do something really peculiar, it's fully legal. As the leader said, it's legal under all federal law that you can repair your stuff. We're just missing the opportunity. So I hope that you'll have a chance to come and see what repair really looks like. It's not scary. The stuff is just small. And we got lots of people. In fact, some of it's so small, you need a microscope. So I'd like to ask Jeannie, who's in the education of repair, to just speak a little bit, and then introduce some more of you.
Hi. My name's Jeannie Crowley. I'm the Director of Technology for the Ethical Culture Fieldston School. And we say it's so easy. We actually start this program with fifth graders. We do a repair tutoring center. We help students learn how to repair their own devices. And there's a couple goals for that. It helps the students connect with understanding something they hold so intimately every day, the cell phone they spend so much time with. But even more largely, we don't really think about the educational pipeline that goes into innovation. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs grew up in an environment with open repair, and like what they accomplished would not be possible if they weren't repairing as children. So it's really critical for our students to understand, how a device works, so they themselves can become innovators in the future. It's a really critical component of the repair movement. So we are here to represent the educational element, and we're just so thankful that you're doing this. So thank you from all of our students.
Thank you. Dan, you want to take a moment?
Hello, good morning. My name is Daniel Malpica. I'm a policy associate with the New York Public Interest Research Group. And electronics are an integral part of our daily lives. We use cell phones, laptops, tablets, smartwatches, TVs, GPSs, and so much more to navigate the physical and digital world that we live in. The history of electronics over the modern consumer era is one of the faster innovations and shorter useful lifespan. That means that more devices are discarded, and the contents are in some ways more toxic than the products of the past. As our products come with sophisticated electronics, access to replacement parts and service information becomes more critical to fix things. But companies are blocking access to those things. When devices are disposed, they enter the waste stream, accounting for 70% of all toxic waste. Currently, New York State has one of the more comprehensive electronic waste programs among the states, requiring producer responsibility for collecting and recycling. In New York, we trash an average of 23,600 cell phones a day. There's about $19 million worth of gold, silver, copper, and palladium in those cell phones. But not only do the cell phones contain these highly valuable materials, their circuit boards also have toxic chemicals like arsenic, beryllium, cadmium, and brominated flame retardants that are found in the plastic housing, printed wiring, boards, and cables. But New York State doesn't do enough to reduce electronics from entering the waste stream. As China closes its doors to our scrap waste, American policymakers and recyclers must scramble to figure out what to do with the increasing e-waste pileup. One step New York can take to divert electronics from landfills while really helping consumers save money is to pass the Fair Repair Bill. Fair Repair would open a whole market of reuse for customers and their electronics. The pressures, frustrations, and limited access of standing on a line to speak to someone at the Genius Bar, where they don't even serve Apple Teenies, will be lifted from consumers, okay? Being able to have a device repaired by an independent party or to do it yourself will save time, energy, money, and natural resources. We are not asking companies like Apple to give out the recipe for their secret sauce. All we want is to be able to change out our batteries and make basic repairs cheaply, efficiently, and safely without manufacturers rendering devices inoperable or voiding warranties as a penalty for resisting the pressures to upgrade devices or going outside the monopoly. We've done it for automobiles, and the time for fair repair for electronics is now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessa Jones, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I was a fixer my whole life, and I live in Monroe County near Rochester. And after being a stay-at-home mom and my kids took one of my cell phones and dropped it in the toilet, I taught myself how to do cell phone repair. And, you know, it's honestly not as hard as you think. In fact, my 11-year-old has even done microsoldering repairs to fix a backlight on an iPad mini. And I have started a business, a local business in my hometown, and now I employ 6 stay-at-home moms in a flexible schedule, and we all fix the devices in our town. And we also do mail-in repair for folks from all over the world that may, like my phone, have gone down a toilet and trapped their precious memories in a device that you can't recover that data unless you can get it to turn back on. We love our business, and I didn't plan to even come up here today, and I happen to be carrying around, because I love repair, this iPad mini. And this iPad mini, you can see, turns on, and it's charged up to 100%. And about 3 days ago, this belonged to a local mom, and her mini was dead. Now, if she goes to the Apple store and says, "Can you fix my mini?" because it's an iPad, the answer is no. Apple will not service any iPad for any reason. They are simply not repairable. So she brings it to me, and we say, sure, that's a common problem. Sudden death on an iPad mini is your charging chip, and open it up, replace it. In order for me to be able to do that repair, I need to be able to get the parts for that. And I would love to be able to just go down to the Apple store in the Eastview Mall and pick up some parts that were OEM certified, been through that Apple QC. I can't do that. So it's very frustrating already that for me to get the parts that I need to do my job, I have to order them from domestic parts suppliers or overseas in China and just hope that what I get is good enough. I have to spend an extraordinary amount of time vetting those parts. I wasted entire weeks this January, beating my head when a batch of iPhone 7 front camera flexes simply made the device boot loop. That's incredibly frustrating. I would love the opportunity to be able to buy some OEM parts. If Apple doesn't want to repair, that's fine, but we do, and our consumers really want to be able to have the option to repair. I'm going to tell you one more story really quickly, and that is I got a phone call earlier this week, and it was from DHL. And DHL is how we import our parts that we are able to get from China. Now, the parts that I get from China are often a hybrid of maybe a OEM screen that was not up to snuff, was then taken apart, resurfaced, and hybridized and turned into kind of a chimera of the best part that I can source for my consumers. I don't want some aftermarket part that has no original components in it whatsoever. So the parts that I try to get are the best that I can get for my people that live in my town. But unfortunately, that means that they are often constructed with pieces and bits of the screen, the part, that have an Apple logo on them because they were mass-produced, intending to at one point go into an OEM screen. The call that I got from DHL said, guess what? We're confiscating your $1,700 part order, and we're just going to throw it away because it has an Apple logo. That is contraband. That is not something that you can have. We're taking it, we're throwing it away, and there's nothing that I can do about that. So not only can I not go buy these parts at the Apple store, but when I go spend all sorts of work and effort to get the best parts I can for my customer, then the manufacturers pressure the U.S. Customs to take those parts and throw them away so that we can't have them either. And that is why I'm here today. I really want for you guys to help us pass this bill finally. This is the third time I've been here. I really, really, really would love for this year to be the year.
Thank you so much. And can you give your business card to Assemblyman Morelli so he doesn't have to buy any more phones? Say a couple words. Terry?
Thank you. I'm Terry Lustephen, and I'm with the Elfin Computer Rehab Program here locally in the Schenectady GE plant. 25 years ago, our program got started by some guys who saw computers being thrown away in the dumpster. And they decided that reusing that equipment for our schools and nonprofits would be a much better thing to do than to just toss them out. So our program's been in existence for 25 years. We've refurbished and donated over 12,000 computers in that time period. We're doing about 550 computers a year that we repair. Now that's all Windows PC based because as you've heard, Apple is not so easy to get parts for and to work on. I won't bore you with regurgitating all of that stuff about Apple. But another part of this is the fact that not only on electronics, but for various other products as well, you can't get the information you need. I have a tractor, drive around lawnmower, that I can't get an electrical schematic for. It's not available to the dealers. It's not available to anyone. It's considered proprietary. Yet you can't do the diagnostics on finding what the intermittent problem is without that electrical schematic. That's just one example amongst many that you'll hear about today. We are at the reuse level. We want people to donate their old computers to us so that we can refurbish them, repair them, and get them out there to schools and nonprofits who can't afford to buy new equipment. That's what our business is. We're an all-volunteer organization, and we live by repair and reuse. We'd like to see this legislation get passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And with that, we'll be happy to take any questions.
We need to
Oh, you want?
let Jeff come.
Oh, okay.
No?
Yeah.
Come on, Jeff.
I didn't see you there.
Thanks. I don't know. No worries. Hi, Jeff Williams, Director of Public Policy at New York Farm Bureau. Farmers need to fix stuff. They need to fix it fast. This year, in general, specifically, it's been a very late spring, as we all know. It's been pretty cold and rainy. They haven't been able to get out into their fields. So now it is nice, and they need to get the work done. If something breaks, they need to fix it now. They can't wait for the dealer to come out or mechanic to come out 3 days later. They need to fix it now. So this legislation would help them do that. They're used to doing these things. They're very independent, very complex people who work on very complex machinery very easily, and this would help them do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And the agricultural aspect is one that people don't necessarily think about right away, but it's a very big issue, and we hear from the Farm Bureau, and thank you for your advocacy on that. And with that, any questions? Very good. So we please come out and see the repair demonstration out near the concourse. I'm sorry. Yeah. Who are you with? I'm sorry.
I'm with CBC Canadian Broadcasting.
Okay.
And maybe this question's been asked, we just found our way here, but there have been many attempts to have right to repair legislation in various
States, yes.
and all of them so far have fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who's looking at it, have not worked out. So I'm just curious how you see this particular situation is different. What is it different, and what is your thought about how this is going to develop into an actual law?
Because we're New York. And we're always in front. You're right. I don't know how many states have legislation now. It's 18 states have legislation. It has not passed. We refer. But remember also, it is only going to take one. It's particularly a state like New York. And then everything's going to follow suit because every manufacturer is going to be thinking about this, and it's going to change the entire landscape of the country. And we got to get it done before the session ends. Yes.
To what degree is it important that it's bipartisan?
It was bipartisan the whole time. I'm a Republican. Well, my colleagues in the Assembly. It has Republican and Democrat Assembly people and senators supportive of it. So, and I think it speaks to the need for it. Besides, obviously, the individual rights of ownership, as was mentioned, environmentally, it's vitally important. The big question is why it hasn't happened already. And don't get me wrong, we have some big opponents in certain areas, and they visit us quite frequently on it. But this is the time to do it because we need to save ownership rights in New York State and protect our environment. Not at this time, but we're talking.
I'm talking to the chair of the Consumer Affairs Committee, and so far has been supportive. We've got to sit down and go through the bill, but I'm hopeful it'll be on agenda pretty quickly.
Good. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
Don't forget to
thanks so
check
much.
out the repair.org demonstration outside. Thanks, Joe.
All right, so we just finished the live press conference. I'm just going around to all the booths here at the Right to Repair section, and can you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing here?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jeannie Crowley. I'm from the Ethical Culture Fielson School. We have a student-run repair tutoring center. So if a student breaks their cell phone, we have a grant. We'll pay for it. A student volunteer will help the other student walk through their own repair. So it's really to empower students to understand how their devices work and become part of the repair movement.
All right, so how old are the students that are getting started in this?
Sure. So we have a party in 5th grade to kind of hook them. They fix some laptops. And
So they start at 5th grade?
5th grade, yeah. And then we have a program that runs 6th through 12th. So we have kids start pretty young, and we scaffold the repairs. So by the time they're in 12th grade, they're doing some pretty complicated repairs.
What are some of the things that they're doing?
Oh, it's almost always cell phones. So, I mean, with high school students, they break them all the time. So they're replacing, cameras and earpieces and home buttons. They're replacing the batteries, and that doesn't seem like a big deal, but before they come to our center, they had never thought that was possible.
And do you have any sort of participation with the manufacturers? Are they helping you with this, or are they not at all? Or where are you getting this stuff from?
We're buying all of our stuff from iFixit right now because we're really concerned about getting off-brand parts because they might have more mercury or lead, so we really try to get original parts. But we're noticing with the new models, it's harder and harder to buy parts, so we're actually not able to fix some of the new models, and that's really hurting our program.
So do you think that there's a chance of it getting passed now versus in 2015? How do you feel this morning?
I'm very hopeful because I feel like there's a lot of different people coming together. You have the farmers, you have the cell phone repairers, and as we see more and more technology get into cars, we're bringing on the auto repairers, and I think we have enough critical mass that this could really be the year for us.
All right, cool. Anyway, it's nice talking to you. Thank you so much for showing up. What are you guys doing at this table?
This is medical device repair, and our stance is that once a hospital owns one of these pieces of equipment, whether it's a rigid endoscope, flexible endoscope, power equipment, video camera, etc., it's their right to choose who can repair this piece of equipment.
So this is not just with cell phones and laptops, this is affecting healthcare?
Yes, it is. And what we're doing is we're keeping healthcare affordable, as to where if the manufacturer, what they do is they try to force unnecessary upgrades by obsoleting pieces of equipment that still work. If something just needs a new eyepiece or needs a new bending rubber, they shouldn't have to upgrade their entire line of endoscopes in order to make that.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what some of this stuff looks like over here. What do you have at the table? Wow.
On the bottom here, we have the original manufacturer parts. On the top, we have mobile instrument services parts. A lot of the parts are received from suppliers out of Germany. A lot of the manufacturers don't even create their own parts. For parts that they do create that we don't have access to, you can see the schematics over here.
They look identical. Yours look identical to the original, and these just look like random pieces of metal, so it's not like it's anything special.
And these are all the parts that are used on these rigid endoscopes over here. So these parts are measured within 1/1000th of a millimeter, and they are the exact same alloys as well.
So there's not any sort of lower quality you're doing, it's just the cheap out. And so where does most of your business come from? What is most of your primary business?
Most of our business is with the hospitals and surgery centers in the United States.
And how do they find you?
They find us by looking for a method of saving a little bit of money on repairs. We're saving about 60% on every single scope that's fixed. And every scope, if it goes down on an average of 10 to 12 uses and it needs a repair, that's an additional $6,000 they would have to pay every 10 to 12 uses by using the OEM.
Can you give us an idea of what the prices of the original products are and what the prices are to repair parts through you are, just like some off the cuff?
On a small diameter flexible endoscope like this, a repair price can go up to $10,000 with the manufacturer, and we cap out at about $3,400 for a repair.
And how much does that thing cost?
Some scopes can cost upwards of $30,000.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right, so what's going on at your table?
I'm Nick Froyo. I'm with a company called Network Craze Technologies. We refurbish and repair networking and phone products, and we believe that the right to repair is just a basic consumer right. That you own it, you should be able to repair it, donate it, fix it. So, along with the environmental aspects, but ownership aspects, and really the resale aspects too. If you can't repair something and fix it, what's the value of that $1,000 iPhone that you just bought?
Yeah, not much.
Yeah, you take it out of the box and it's gone. So,
what do you have at this table?
So these are some examples of some things we do. This is some maybe used phones that come in, go through our process to get completely refurbished and resold just as good as new. Same thing, these are on the phone side, and then these are on the high-end network and routing side. So we have customers throughout, from hospitals to banks to really clients across all industries that reuse equipment and not just throw it out.
Oh, very cool. So, yeah, thank you for taking the time today.
So we can guess that these two dudes are the same, probably, right? So that means we've got like a known good.
Who are you?
I'm Jessa from iPad Rehab, and we're gonna try to fix Gay's toaster, which
Are you qualified for that?
not in the least. I've never seen the inside of a toaster, but I do have permission from the customer.
Take 2 seconds to put this on.
Well, we're just kind of making it up. We're just kind of showing how we think about things and how we figure stuff out. Like on this thing, this belongs to Gay, and she said it's working on one side. I've never looked inside the toaster. I never tried to fix it before. Have you?
I throw it in the garbage. I go to Walmart and get another one for $9.99.
That's right. You know, at one time I looked on eBay for like the kind my granddad had. That was the same one for like 50 years. Never looked at it. But this one, if you had to put a guess, this side's the one that's not working. If you had to take a guess between, I'll give you make it multiple choice. How did this fail? Choice A, water damage. B, it got too hot. Or C, it's a drop, mechanical damage. Which would you pick?
The last one.
You're going to pick that it dropped, or look at that.
That's wet?
No, touch it.
Holy cow.
Is it burned up?
Burned up.
Yeah, so let's go with B, burned up.
Burned up.
So that's going to change how we think, right? Water damage is going to damage things differently than something that got hot. Now, the good news about this one is that apparently one side of it still works. And it looks pretty simple. It looks like these little circuit boards must control it. And since it works on one side, what do you think about that board? It's probably good.
Probably it's good. Probably still working.
So I don't know how to fix this, but what do you think about just saying, let's just take it out and compare it to the bad one? Yeah.
And trying to find one that is identical.
We'll try to figure out with a multimeter. We'll measure it, and you can see over there what it looks like under here, and you can see it's kind of burned up and
burn out.
Right. So maybe we can figure out how to just cut off the damaged part so that the other side works. Or maybe we could figure out how does this thing get power? Probably from that. I think that's how it gets power. Probably there's a way to connect it to a power supply. Maybe we could take power from this and supply both sides.
Now, how long will it take you to fix that?
Oh, either anywhere between 5 minutes and 500 years.
Depending
Because
on
it depends. Because I've never seen this problem before. But a lot of times when you see one problem, it kind of points to a signature failure, meaning
Sound like
there's a reason why it happened.
sound like I might leak in my room. I never can find it. Good job. Thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
Do you think we have a better chance of getting it passed this time than 2015?
People said they think there's a better chance. That's much better than we've had before.
Think slightly better than, did it go better here than it did with Ernie Chambers?
Oh, way better.
So, who are you and what do you do?
Russ Haven. I'm General Counsel with New York Public Interest Research Group, NYPIRG. We're an environmental and consumer advocacy group.
Cool. So how does right to repair affect you?
Personally, I've suffered, like many people, the nightmare of the dead cell phone. Repeated trips to the cell phone provider, and had to re-up a phone. In my estimation, way too early, and it drives me crazy that I'm personally responsible for all this electronic waste that ends up in landfills or shipped to Southeast Asia somewhere. So. It's a big issue personally, but I think, society-wise, it's a really pressing issue we need to deal with.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Who are you and what do you do?
We are with the Elfin Society Computer Rehab Program.
And so how does right to repair affect you?
Hand-me-down donated computers, what have you, and we refurbish them, wipe the hard drives, and then redonate them to charitable organizations, schools.
That world, the right to repair already exists.
Very cool.
See it spread.
Anything else to add, Terry?
Computer equipment is all free. The only thing we have to charge for are the Microsoft licenses, and those are only $10 a piece. So a school or a nonprofit can get a good working computer with Windows 10 Professional, Office 2010 Home and Business for a total of $20.
How does right to repair affect you?
Because we're working in the Microsoft PC world, we're kind of on one side over where we already have the right to repair. But we aren't working with any of the Windows or the Apple products because those are not necessarily repairable.
They're a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, and so we're forced to work in the Microsoft PC world. But,
Do you think that there's any progress made today compared to where we were 3 years ago, or there seems to be a lot of enthusiasm amongst the senators and assembly people?
Yeah, I know. A lot of enthusiasm. I certainly hope something moves soon on this because it's a very important piece of legislation.
At places that I've already been to say, is it this, is it this, is it this, to try to figure that out.
Are you at once finally willing to admit that you learned how to repair phones from watching my YouTube channel?
I plead the fifth. Isn't that one of the things we can do here?